While I was in labor, my husband abandoned me alone on an overpass for his mistress. He even said, let's divorce to appease Ashley Thompson, then remarry. This ultimately led to my miscarriage and the loss of my baby. After the divorce, we ran into each other at the airport, where they humiliated and beat me. My new husband stepped forward, exposing their wicked deeds. Ultimately, they both went bankrupt, became homeless, and died poisoned in the streets. Sarah Chen, you vanished for 3 years. Couldn't resist showing up today, could you? You're here asking for money, aren't you? Today is an important occasion. I'm warning you, get lost. Otherwise, you won't get a single cent. I stood at the airport entrance, being verbally abused by the man walking towards me. It took me a moment of stunned silence to recognize him as my ex-husband, David Miller. And the woman beside him, looking radiant, was Ashley Thompson. There was a time when Ashley Thompson was wearing patch clothes, implies poverty. She knelt before me, begging for financial support to attend college. I took pity on her and covered all her living expenses. I never imagined that this girl from a small town, rural area would, from the very beginning, be intended to take over my life, replace me. After several years, she was dressed head to toe in designer brands, looking every bit the wealthy socialite, wife of a rich man. It seemed that after forcing me out, she had successfully secured David Miller. After cursing at me for a couple of sentences, David Miller still seemed unsatisfied. He scoffed with contempt, all I was doing back then was trying to help someone, and you just stormed off in a huff. I thought you had more backbone. Why show up today? Sarah Chen, look in the mirror. Look at yourself now. You're the absolute lowest of the low. Must be rough, leaving me, living in poverty. Realize now how important money is. Realize now that a successful husband was your anchor. Too bad, it's a little late. From the moment you threw that childish tantrum and left, you weren't fit to be my wife. Let me make it clear, even if you're standing right here in front of me now, there's no way I'm remarrying you. I shook my head, speechless. You're mistaken. I'm here at the airport on business. David Miller looked me up and down. You're here on business at the airport. Can you even afford a plane ticket? If you want money, just say so. Don't come up with phony excuses, it's pathetic. Ashley Thompson also said, passive-aggressive, sarcastic, Sarah, David and I are getting married soon. It makes things difficult for us when you show up here like this, completely disregarding propriety. Besides, David's company is growing rapidly. You might not care about appearances, but we have to consider our public image. David Miller pulled a wad of bills, cash from his wallet and threw it directly in my face. Here, this should keep you going for a few days. Now stop making trouble. He took Ashley Thompson's hand and strode away haughtily. I was so angry I couldn't speak, make a sound. I wanted to chase after them and snap back, but I checked the time, my husband should be getting off his flight. I used to be late every time I was picking someone up, which always made him look disappointed. Today, I was working out, when I suddenly remembered I needed to be picking someone up, so I rushed over, out of breath, without even changing my clothes. Maybe seeing me sweating profusely, and with my hair messy made David Miller think I wanted to remarry him. I took a deep breath, composed myself, and entered the terminal, airport lounge area. I have a husband who loves me. Why should I let 2 mad dogs ruin my mood? However, as soon as I entered the VIP lounge, I frowned. The usually clean and quiet VIP lounge was very noisy today. Many men were talking loudly, smoking heavily, and the entire VIP lounge was filled with a smoky and unpleasant atmosphere. David Miller was the center of attention, surrounded by flatterers, with everyone flatter, complimenting him. Mr. Miller's company is on a strong trajectory lately. This collaboration with Sterling Group is a sure thing. It's bound to skyrocket in the future. We hope that after Mr. Miller secures the Sterling Group contract, he'll let us get a piece of the pie, share in the profits. David Miller was smug and beaming with pride. Ashley Thompson, standing next to him, also adopted the air of a CEO's wife, wife of the president, enjoying the praised, flattered. The second-hand smoke made me cough. A portly, pudgy, descriptive man nearby walked over and said, annoyed, hick, country bumpkin, you're in the wrong place. This is the VIP lounge, not a place for you to hang around. Get out. Displeased, I took out my VIP pass, lounge pass. I'm not in the wrong place. I paid to be here. The man was about to say more when David Miller walked over. He said coldly, Sarah Chen, are you going to such lengths just to ask for money from me? You splurged, spent a fortune just to get into the VIP lounge. Before I could reply, he shoved a few bills, cash into my hand and broke my VIP pass, lounge pass. I've refunded your money. You're not entitled to stay in the VIP lounge anymore. So, can you leave now? I was so angry I almost swore. I called for a VIP lounge attendant. The attendant looked at my attire, clothes, and said coldly, "If you don't agree to Mr. Miller's refund, according to the rules, you are indeed permitted to remain in the VIP lounge." I pointed to the no smoking sign on the wall. "Can you ask them to put out their smoke?" The attendant was even colder. "These gentlemen have paid the fine. They can smoke freely for the next hour. If you can't stand it, you can leave. To be honest, some places aren't meant for just anyone." I took a deep, angry breath. "I want to file a complaint against you." The attendant sneered. "Madam, the VIP lounge is for VIPs. Your status and position determine that even if you file a complaint against me, it won't carry much weight, won't be taken seriously. In short, I don't care. Suit yourself." At this point, David Miller looked at me with contempt. "Sarah Chen, 3 years gone, and you've become this embarrassing oneself." Ashley Thompson also put on a show of feigning concern, hypocritical. "Sarah, you should leave quickly. Staying here will only make people laugh." A businessman nearby asked David Miller curiously, "Mr. Miller, you know this woman?" David Miller's smile looked a little unnatural. "Made a mistake in marriage, married the wrong person when I was young, acted impulsively." The surrounding businessmen nodded in agreement. Normal, perfectly normal. These scheming women, manipulative women, they just love to chase after rich men. Who hasn't been tricked by a few women in their youth? It's fine once you realize. Now Mr. Miller and his wife have a deep affection for each other. They've made mistakes in the past and found true love. You only truly appreciate how good true love is after knowing how bad gold digger are. This experience was actually useful. These people mocked and disparaged me without reservation. David Miller, my ex-husband, knew I was innocent, knew I was framed, yet he didn't say a single word in my defense. Instead, he pointed at me contemptuously and said, "I don't know where she heard that I'd be here to meet Mr. Peterson today. Look, she's here piteously asking for money." Utterly shameless and disgusting. The people around me pointed at me with disgust, lecturing me, "Madam, have some dignity, show some shame. You should leave. This is an exclusive setting, high-class place, where everyone is discussing business. Your behavior here is just irritating, and you won't get something for nothing. You have hands and feet. Wouldn't it be better to work hard? Why always think about get something for nothing?" I said coldly, "I'm not here to ask for money today." Running into David Miller was just a coincidence. David Miller sneered. This pathetic attempt at playing hard to get. "You still think you can reel me in? Sarah Chen, I did love you once, but my patience ran out long ago." He put his arm around Ashley Thompson, looking at me as if to provoke me. "I found someone else I love. We're getting married very soon. As for you, you're not my unforgettable love versus someone, easily forgotten, or phrase as, not your unforgettable love, just a nobody. You're just a stranger. Your presence here today doesn't bring back any fond memories. I just find your used dirty tricks, played dirty disgusting." Someone started to applaud, clapped. The entire room of businessmen clapped with expressions of admiration. "Well done, David. You tell her, David. What a man." This greasy and fawning, sycophantic scene made my stomach turn. I couldn't be bothered to argue with these jerks, scum, and turned to leave. However, Ashley Thompson suddenly blocked me. "Sarah Chen, are you just going to leave? Don't you think you should apologize to me?" I looked at Ashley Thompson, bewildered. "What do you mean?" Ashley Thompson pointed to her high heels. "My shoes are designer shoes, custom-made shoes, $30,000. You deliberately stepped on me just now, and the shoe surface, upper, is damaged." Everyone looked at me. One of the wealthy businessmen said, "How can this woman be so ill-mannered, rude? Not only ill-mannered, rude, but also vengeful." David Miller said to me with a cold face, "Sarah Chen, you've really stooped low, degenerated." I said, exasperated, "I didn't step on me." Ashley Thompson sneered. "So you're saying I'm lying? I'm about to become the CEO's wife, wife of the president of a publicly traded company. Who am I? What's my status? Would I waste my time framing you?" Hearing this, David Miller looked at me with even more hostility. He yelled at me, "Sarah Chen, did you step on me or not? Stop lying and making a scene for me." I spat. "Are you crazy? What do I have to do with you? How am I making a scene for you asterisk? David Miller, stop flattering yourself. I stopped liking you ages ago, and I'm not here because of you today." David Miller's face turned ashen. "Fine, fine. You don't know what's good for you, do you? Then I won't help you either. Pay for the damages, or we'll call the police." The surrounding group of people all loudly supported David Miller. "Definitely call the police. Teach her a lesson." I checked the time. I was going to be late, picking someone up again. I thought for a moment and said to Ashley Thompson, $30,000, I'll give it to you first. But this matter isn't over. I'll ask the police to investigate. If it's my fault, keep the 30,000. If it's not my fault, you have to return the money to me and apologize publicly. I took out my phone to transfer the money to Ashley Thompson. But David Miller reached out and knocked my phone to the ground. He pointed at my nose and said, $30,000. Do you even have it? Stop living beyond your means. If you had $30,000, why would you be here asking for money from me today? Sarah Chen, you're not thinking of taking out a payday loan, online loan, are you? I never thought you could have fallen this low. My phone was smashed. I wanted to leave but was blocked by everyone. Even the VIP lounge attendant locked the VIP lounge door, saying they had to wait for the police to arrive and handle the financial dispute before anyone could leave. I knew that beneath the phony excuses, it was just to satisfy the needs of her esteemed guests, preferred clientele. Everyone was blaming me. I could only sit in the corner, silently waiting for the police to arrive. Looking through the crowd, I saw Ashley Thompson watching me. Her eyes were filled with malicious glee. I was startled. Was she happy torturing me, her benefactor? I was Ashley Thompson's benefactor. She used to say that all the time. Ever since I sponsored her for college, she was deeply grateful, indebted to me. Whenever she had time, she would come to my house to clean, cook, and wash dishes. Even though I had a housekeeper, maid, she would took over all the chores, insisted on doing everything. Even during the Christmas, holiday season, she insisted on kneel down as a sign of extreme gratitude, described the act in its unusual nature, to me. I stopped her, but she said it was a custom from her hometown, her way of showing respect. I thought good deeds would be repaid with kindness, that I had met a good girl, who knew how to be grateful. But only later did I understand the dynamic. A little help is appreciated, but too much breeds resentment. The more I helped Ashley Thompson, the more she envied me. The more I gave her, the more she took it for granted, even feeling that I hadn't given her enough. The more subservient she was in front of me, the more she wanted to step on me, and reclaim the dignity she felt she'd lost because of me. She wasn't just an ungrateful person, snake in the grass, but also full of schemes, cunning, a manipulative social climber, someone who acts innocent but is scheming, who was determined to climb the social ladder. Her frequent visits to my house gave her the opportunity to get close to David Miller. I don't know when they started having an affair behind my back. When I found out, my unborn child, baby, was far along, late in the pregnancy. For the sake of the baby's safe delivery, I bit my tongue, swallowed my anger, but I never expected that on the day I was going into labor, the day I was due, Ashley Thompson would threaten suicide, made a scene threatening suicide, forcing David Miller to abandon me on the overpass. The past flashed before my eyes, reliving the past, making me sigh involuntarily. At some point, Ashley Thompson squeezed next to me. She whispered in my ear, Sarah, the tables have turned now. Everything you used to have, I have now. And you have nothing left. I nodded calmly. Including David Miller, that jerk, scum. I didn't want him anymore anyway. He's all yours. Back when I sponsored you, you already liked my hand-me-down clothes, hand-me-down bags. I didn't realize you wouldn't mind my cast-off husband either. Ashley Thompson lost her cool, got under her skin instantly, and raised her hand to slap me. I caught her hand, blocked her slap. Ashley Thompson, however, sneered, no matter what, I won. You divorced David, and your child didn't make it. There's no way you'll ever get a share of David's assets, estate now. Oh, right, Sarah, you still don't know, do you? Back when I waited on me, served me, I was secretly putting abortion pills in your drink. My head buzzed, felt a shock. I remembered the day I miscarried, the excruciating abdominal pain. I remembered my baby, who never got to live, the child I lost, who I never even met. In that instant, rage surged, overcome with anger. I stood up and slapped her hard. But David Miller rushed over. He roared at me, Sarah Chen, how dare you hit her? He kicked me in the chest. I gasped, grunted, and fell to the ground. My entire chest was in agony, and I couldn't breathe, let alone speak, make a sound. But David Miller wasn't done with me. He grabbed my hair and said viciously, snarled, apologized to Ashley. But in my state, I couldn't speak at all. David Miller shoved me hard, pushed me into the corner. I struggled to get up, but Ashley Thompson brutally kicked me behind the knee. I lost my balance, stumbled and fell to my knees, with sharp pain in my knee. The surrounding wealthy men, businessmen, each one looked away, ignored it. Some even looked eager to jump in and help beat me up. Just then, the VIP lounge door burst open. The attendant said in an excited, fawning voice, Mr. Peterson, you're here. Tears streamed down my face. My husband had arrived. Mr. Peterson, you must be exhausted from your flight. We have refreshments ready. Mr. Peterson, I'm from Titan Group. Please give us your guidance. Mr. Peterson, this is a gift from our jewelry company, jeweler for your wife. We hope you accept it. Everyone was flattered, complimenting Robert Peterson, trying their best to flatter him, eager to curry favor. Robert Peterson absently hummed in response. I saw him looked around, as if searching for someone. The last person to approach Robert Peterson was David Miller. He said obsequiously to Robert Peterson, Mr. Peterson, I'm the president of Horizon Enterprises. We sincerely hope to partner with Sterling Group. This is the business proposal I stayed up all night preparing. Please take a look, review it. I struggled to get up, wanting to call out to Robert Peterson. However, Ashley Thompson pressed down on my shoulder, making me sink back to the ground. She covered my mouth with a filthy rag, and said viciously in my ear, my husband is negotiating an incredibly important deal. Sarah Chen, you want to go ask for money now? You truly have no shame. If you ruin my husband's image, I'll kill you. David Miller held out the proposal with both hands to Robert Peterson. However, Robert Peterson didn't take it. He said impatiently, another time, not today. I'm not in the mood for business today. David Miller stood frozen. He looked completely embarrassed, but didn't dare show anger. Instead, he had to force a smile, smiled apologetically. Robert Peterson wasn't paying him any attention at all. He was on his phone and said exasperatedly, angrily to his assistant, still haven't get a hold of Sarah Chen. What is wrong with this woman? Where is she? The assistant was sweating profusely, and said nervously, I've called from a dozen different numbers, tried over a dozen times, but it keeps said her phone was off. Robert Peterson said, then trace her signal, find her location. This is ridiculous, she's gone too far. Late every time I pick him up. This time she just turned her phone off. Towards the end, in Robert Peterson's authoritative voice, there was a hint of hurt that most people wouldn't notice. David Miller heard my name and his expression flickered. Said, trying to gain favor, Mr. Peterson, are you looking for Sarah Chen? Robert Peterson immediately looked at David Miller, pierced him with his gaze. What? You saw her. David Miller mistook Robert Peterson's concern for hatred and immediately said, trying to gain favor, yes, I saw her. And I even taught her a lesson. Mr. Peterson, I don't know how that woman, her offended you, but I could tell she really got under your skin. Don't worry, I can handle these little things from now on. Robert Thompson's face changed drastically. What did you say? He reached out and grabbed Mark Davis by the collar. Nearly 6'3", he almost lifted Mark Davis off the ground. Where is she? Where is Sarah Thompson? Robert Thompson roared at him. Mark Davis' face turned pale. He stammered, Mr. Thompson, I. With a bang, Robert Thompson threw Mark Davis to the ground. The terrified rich businessman had automatically cleared a path, revealing me in the corner. Jessica Wilson was still crouching beside me, covering my mouth. Hidden by the crowd, she had no idea what was happening. Seeing Robert Thompson approach, she immediately said, Mr. Thompson, this bitch came looking for money from my husband. Don't let her ruin our business. Robert Thompson slapped her directly across the face. Jessica Wilson shrieked, covered her face, and fell to the ground. Husband. I called out tearfully. Robert Thompson's eyes reddened. He instantly pulled me into his arms. Jessica Wilson stared blankly at the scene. She stammered, Mr. Thompson, is she your family? I'm sorry, we didn't know. Unfortunately, Robert Thompson didn't give her time for excuses. He waved his hand, and the Thompson family bodyguards immediately rushed forward. Mark Davis and Jessica Wilson were dragged to the corner. They covered the two people's mouths and brutally beat them. The rich businessmen were terrified into silence, watching me cautiously. Some wanted to sneak away. However, Robert Thompson said coolly, gentlemen, until I figure out the full story, no one is allowed to leave. The businessmen panicked, their faces turning deathly pale. When Mark Davis and Jessica Wilson were abusing me just now, they were all accomplices. Without exception, not a single one of them was innocent. Some of them desperately tried to backtrack, trying to distance themselves. But under Robert Thompson's cold gaze, the businessmen broke down, dropped to their knees, and chose to confess in hopes of leniency. They lined up to apologize to me. I didn't say a word, just stared at them, feeling indignant. Robert Thompson's face was dark, and he ignored them too. These businessmen were utterly bewildered, each one uneasy. One person raised their hand and slapped themselves hard across the face. It dawned on the others. Seeing a glimmer of hope, they all frantically began slapping themselves. Robert Thompson and I watched coldly. Half an hour later, all the businessmen's faces were swollen. Most of them had even beaten their faces until they were a bloody mess. Robert Thompson finally said faintly, that's enough. The businessmen were disoriented, and they dazedly slapped themselves 2 more times before stopping. The businessmen thanked him tearfully, but Robert Thompson didn't look at them again. He looked towards Mark Davis and Jessica Wilson in the corner. The two of them had been brutally beaten. Robert Thompson said to Jessica Wilson, "Are you sure my wife ruined your shoes?" Even at this point, Jessica Wilson remained defiant. She said hypocritically, "Mr. Thompson, I believe Mrs. Thompson didn't do it on purpose. I didn't intend to blame her myself. It was others egging things on, making it a big deal." Robert Thompson nodded. "All right. I, Robert Thompson, never bully others by flaunting power. Right is right, wrong is wrong." He pulled me and walked in front of Jessica Wilson. Jessica Wilson shrank back in fear. Robert Thompson said coldly, "Stand up." His words weren't harsh, but he was quietly commanding. Even though Jessica Wilson was covered in bruises from the beating, she didn't dare disobey Robert Thompson's order, and endured the pain to stand up. There was indeed a clear footprint on her right shoe. Robert Thompson said softly to me, "Honey, do you want to step on her left foot?" I smiled at Robert Thompson, and stepped down hard on Jessica Wilson's left foot. She let out a muffled groan of pain, but I didn't let go. Instead, I put my entire body weight onto that foot, grinding down hard. Jessica Wilson was already crying from the pain. She sobbed, "Sarah, I was wrong, please forgive me." I lifted my foot. Now there was a shoe print on her left foot as well. And this shoe print was completely different from the one on her right foot. Jessica Wilson instantly turned pale. Robert Thompson said coldly, "Exactly who messed up your shoes?" Jessica Wilson stammered, "I didn't see." Robert Thompson beckoned a bodyguard over. "I don't believe someone wouldn't see who stepped on their shoes. Help her remember." The bodyguard was heavy-handed and didn't treat Jessica Wilson like a woman at all. Soon, screams of pain from Jessica Wilson filled the room. Finally, Jessica Wilson cried out, I remember, I scuffed my shoes myself. I was wrong, Mr. Thompson, please forgive me." Robert Thompson couldn't be bothered with Jessica Wilson at all. He waved his hand, dismissing the bodyguard. He looked around at the rich businessmen and said coldly, "You are all business magnates, each of you incredibly smart. Was it that you couldn't think of a way to solve this, or that you didn't intend to solve it at all? It would have taken just a second to clear my wife's name, yet you helped these two, wrongly accusing and assaulting her. Were you trying to take advantage because I wasn't here?" All the businessmen shivered, lowering their heads, daring not to speak. Robert Thompson sneered, "For all of you, Thompson Enterprises will not be doing business with you for the next 3 years." Upon hearing the punishment, the businessmen all turned pale and nodded, feeling the sting of the loss. Losing Thompson Enterprises cooperation would mean bankruptcy for many of them. Robert Thompson looked at Mark Davis. "As for you, I'm afraid I'll have to pay special attention. No matter who your company partners with, I will suppress it with all my might. Anyone you do business with is my enemy." Mark Davis looked at Robert Thompson in despair, as if all his strength had been drained. "Mr. Thompson, you're trying to kill me." Robert Thompson couldn't be bothered to say another word to him. He held me close and turned to leave. Mark Davis suddenly raised his voice and shouted, "Mr. Thompson, I'll tell you a secret. Will you let me off?" "A secret about your wife, Sarah Thompson." Mark Davis' words made my body stiffen. But Robert Thompson's steps didn't falter in the slightest. He said faintly, "We are one in spirit, our hearts connected. We don't need an outsider like you sowing discord." My nose tingled, and hot tears rolled down. In desperation, Mark Davis shouted behind us, "Regardless of the consequences, Robert Thompson, Sarah Thompson was married before. I am her ex-husband." Robert Thompson turned back and looked at Mark Davis with contempt. "I've known for a long time. Besides, who hasn't encountered a few scumbags in their youth? You cheated during your marriage, causing the death of your own child, and you have the nerve to shout here. What happened back then wasn't Sarah's fault, it was yours." A devastating psychological blow. Mark Davis was completely defeated. He walked dejectedly to Jessica Wilson's side, reached out and helped her up. "Let's go." But Jessica Wilson shoved him hard, crying out, "It's all your fault. All your fault. You kept saying you'd marry me, but you dragged it out for 3 years. If you had given me more money, would I care about shoes worth $5,000? $5,000? Mark Davis froze, staring at Jessica Wilson blankly. "Didn't you say you didn't care about money at all?" Jessica Wilson shrieked wildly, "So in your eyes, I, Jessica Wilson, am that cheap? Is that it?" I couldn't be bothered to watch the two of them tearing each other apart. I held Robert Thompson's arm, and left the VIP lounge. Outside, I saw the terminal manager, with a few others, severely reprimanding the VIP lounge attendant. Word of the VIP lounge incident had spread throughout the airport. The airport knew there had been trouble, and was trying to make amends. The attendant saw me come out, immediately ran over with a bruised and swollen face, and knelt on the ground begging for my forgiveness. I ignored her, just walked around her, and continued forward. They wronged me. I owed them justice, not forgiveness. I had no obligation to forgive her. My injuries were superficial and were treated at the hospital. They healed quickly. But Robert Thompson insisted I stay in the hospital for a full examination. His eyes remained red. In the hospital room, with just the two of us, he held me close and said with a pained expression, "Honey, I'll never let you pick me up from the airport again." I was overjoyed and quickly agreed, "Okay." But then Robert Thompson's face immediately fell. I thought speechlessly, he really says one thing and means another, I quickly changed my tune. "But honey, I want to pick you up. Just don't complain if I'm late in the future." Robert Thompson's expression immediately cleared, and he promised me, "I'll wait for you, at the terminal from now on. No matter how late you are, I'll wait." I was overjoyed. I secretly gave a thumbs up behind my back. But as soon as I did, I noticed a mirror behind me. My little gesture was saw everything by Robert Thompson. I quickly changed the subject and said to Robert Thompson, "Why isn't there even a single bouquet of flowers in the hospital room?" Robert Thompson immediately said, "I'll go buy some right away." Watching his hurried departure, I smiled sweetly. Days in the hospital were boring. I wasn't actually sick, but a few test results wouldn't be back until the next day. That evening, while Robert Thompson was asleep, I secretly slipped downstairs, wanting to get some fresh air. Suddenly, someone called my name from behind. I was startled. I thought it was Robert Thompson, but to my surprise, standing behind me was Mark Davis. I looked at Mark Davis warily, ready to call for help at any moment. However, Mark Davis dropped to his knees in front of me. He looked at me with a look of deep affection. "Sarah, do you know why I never married Jessica Wilson? Because I never forgot you. I've been waiting for you to come back." He even started crying. I scoffed speechlessly. "Mark Davis, that's not what you said at the airport." Mark Davis explained with a look of sincerity, "Sarah, I deliberately said those things to make you angry. I loved you too much, so your leaving back then made me angry with you ever since. If you had just yielded to me, said something soft, I would have hugged you right away. We were married for years, you should know that I respond to kindness, not pressure." He kept talking, even reaching out to hug me. I stepped back, saying coldly, "Mark Davis, don't come near me." He looked sad. "Sarah, are you still mad at me?" Watching his act, I just felt disgusted. I couldn't even be bothered to say another word to him. I pointed towards the hospital entrance. "Get out." I turned and walked back towards the building. Mark Davis pleaded, "Sarah, I swear on my life, I really still love you. At the airport today, I just wanted to curb your will, so you wouldn't be so headstrong in the future. You have no idea how happy I was when I saw you appear." I threw back a speechless remark, "Crazy." Mark Davis chased after me, but at the corner of the hospital lobby, 2 Thompson family bodyguards appeared and blocked Mark Davis. I was startled, and then I saw Robert Thompson standing in the hallway, watching me with a playful expression. Where was the trace of sleep on his face? "Sneaking downstairs to meet Mark Davis while your husband was asleep," Robert Thompson said slowly. "I wasn't, I just came down for some fresh air, I didn't know he was there," I explained in a panic. Robert Thompson said faintly, "But what I saw was you having a secret meeting." I said with a pained face, "I really wasn't." Robert Thompson said, "It's not impossible for me to forgive you. As long as..." My eyes lit up. "As long as what?" Robert Thompson continued, "As long as you're never late for picking me up again. I, the head of the Thompson family, can't outsmart him, really can't." I felt utterly helpless. The next day, I couldn't wait to be discharged from the hospital. But to my surprise, Mark Davis was standing outside the hospital entrance, blocking my car. He unfurled a banner, "Sarah Thompson, let me pursue you again." Robert Thompson looked at me in utter exasperation. "Was your taste this bad before?" I covered my face, feeling too embarrassed to face anyone. I don't know how he became so making a fool of himself. "Husband, tell them to get rid of him." Robert Thompson called for the bodyguards. However, before the bodyguards could act, a woman walked towards Mark Davis. It was Jessica Wilson. She was acting completely like a shrew, rushing over furiously, scratching and clawing at Mark Davis. Mark Davis seemed to felt guilty, and didn't fight back. Jessica Wilson became even more frantic, pointing at Mark Davis' nose and cursing him loudly. "Mark Davis, you're a useless failure. The company is going bankrupt. And you still have the nerve to pursue Sarah Thompson here. Sarah Thompson is already married to Robert Thompson. You're just making a fool of yourself here, you won't get anything." Mark Davis stood there stunned, not saying a word. The current Mark Davis did feel a bit pathetic. Perhaps Robert Thompson's appearance had shattered all his pride. And then Jessica Wilson suddenly walked towards our car. She looked at me and Robert Thompson with a humble expression, and then, right on the street, in broad daylight, she knelt down before us. Jessica Wilson said pleadingly, "Sarah, please be merciful and let us off the hook." At the airport, we didn't know who they were dealing with. I was wrong, I was really wrong. Then, she started to knock her head on the ground. People were coming and going from the hospital, and who knows how many people were watching on the street. Pedestrians pointed and whispered about her, but she seemed not to see or hear, just kept knocking her head towards my car. I thought for a moment and rolled down the car window. Jessica Wilson was both surprised and delighted, and she crawled towards my car on her knees. Looking at the groveling Jessica Wilson, I said coldly, "Does this scene look familiar?" Jessica Wilson froze. I said slowly, 3 years ago, when I first met you, you were this humble too. For tuition fees, you knelt before me in public. On every special occasion, she would prostrate herself before me. At the time, I thought you were pathetic, that you knew how to be grateful. Now I understand that a person who doesn't even value their dignity is the one with the fewest boundaries. People like you are terrifying. 3 years ago, you stole everything. 3 years later, I won't let you succeed again. Jessica Wilson, your act won't work on me anymore. Your kneeling is worthless, your begging means nothing. Jessica Wilson's face was ashen. Suddenly, she looked at Robert Thompson. "Mr. Thompson, I'm younger than Sarah Thompson, I can do anything." Like grabbing the last straw, she pleaded, "Mr. Thompson, will you give me a chance?" Robert Thompson frowned, ignored her, and rolled up the car window directly. Our car drove away, leaving only the stunned Mark Davis standing there, and Jessica Wilson kneeling on the ground. A month later, Mark Davis' company went bankrupt. This happened faster than anyone expected, because all the rich businessmen were retaliating against Mark Davis. After all, at the airport, without Mark Davis, the businessmen wouldn't have offended me, and wouldn't have suffered immense losses. So, they vented all their anger on Mark Davis. Mark Davis went bankrupt, accumulated a lot of debt, and had his credit ruined, and Jessica Wilson began to feel lucky she hadn't married Mark Davis, saving herself from similar debt. She tried to latch onto other rich men, but her reputation in the circle was completely ruined, and no rich man would have anything to do with her. Even her act of kneeling publicly at the hospital had been spread online by gossipers, who dragged her through the mud online. Even the online community knew about her biting the hand that feeds her, and knowingly being a mistress. Online. There was an outcry online against Jessica Wilson. Under these circumstances, Jessica Wilson actually thought, any publicity is good publicity. Shamelessly, she started a live stream, wanting to use her live stream to cash in. However, in less than 10 minutes, the live stream was blocked due to mass reporting by netizens. According to the contract, Jessica Wilson had to compensate the suppliers for their losses. Like Mark Davis, she ended up with significant debt. A few months later, I became pregnant. Robert Thompson accompanied me to the hospital for prenatal checkups. At the hospital entrance, I saw Mark Davis and Jessica Wilson picking up trash. The moment they saw me, a malevolent gleam appeared in their eyes. But upon seeing the bodyguards beside me, they lowered their heads and fled in a panic. I said to Robert Thompson with some confusion, "Even if they went bankrupt, it shouldn't be to the point of picking up trash, right?" Robert Thompson said faintly, "Not a single company is willing to hire them. They can't find work, and even if they set up a street stall, they wouldn't have customers. Besides picking up trash, they have no other way to survive." 2 years later, news reported that 2 bodies were found on a park bench. They were suspected to be homeless people who had died from poisoning after eating contaminated food. After identification by the police, the deceased were confirmed to be Jessica Wilson and Mark Davis. I didn't pay much attention to the news because Ethan was urging me at the door. Not yet 2.5 years old, he had already learned to speak. His slightly slurred little voice called out, "Mommy, Mommy, hurry. We're going to miss Dada's plane." Me, coming. If we're late this time, you have to volunteer to take the heat for Mommy.